I was never supposed to hear what he said that night. It was one of those offhand comments people make when they're drunk, barely aware, tossed out like a joke, a dare, something to laugh off the next morning. But I heard it. And once I did, I couldn't unhear it. It was a Friday night in late October, the kind where the air gets that dry chill, and you can smell someone's fireplace 2 blocks away. My best friend Theo had invited a few of us over for drinks at his place. Nothing crazy, just a low-key hangout with too much beer and not enough food. His older brother Liam had just come back into town after a few months working up north, and I hadn't seen him in a while. Liam was 3 years older than us, worked in construction, and always had that dusty, sunburnt look like he'd been living outside. He was tall, built like a guy who actually used a gym for something other than selfies, and had the kind of lazy confidence that made people want to be around him, even when he wasn't saying much. Back in high school, he'd been the kind of guy who was always surrounded by girls, but never seemed to be dating any of them. I never really figured him out, or maybe I never let myself try. Theo and I had been friends since middle school, inseparable really. He was the loud one, the funny one, the one who made parties feel fun even when nothing was happening. I was quieter, more of the observer type. We balanced each other out. He never knew I had a thing for his brother. I wasn't about to screw up our friendship over something that had nowhere to go. Anyway, that night felt normal at first. The living room was warm from the radiator, and a mix of classic rock and random Spotify songs played in the background. There were 6 of us. Theo, me, Liam, and 3 of Theo's friends from work. Beer bottles piled up on the coffee table. Someone brought chips, but no one touched them. We were a few rounds into a dumb drinking game when Theo got a call from his girlfriend and stepped outside to talk to her. That's when it happened. Liam had been leaning back in the armchair, one hand wrapped around a beer, his eyes half-lidded in that relaxed way that made it seem like he wasn't really listening. One of Theo's coworkers, some guy named Darren, was teasing him about not having a girlfriend. "Come on, man," Darren said, slurring slightly. "What is it? You secretly into dudes or something?" Everyone laughed, but Liam didn't smile. He looked up slowly, and for a second, he locked eyes with me. Then he said, "Maybe I am." Silence. Just for a beat. The kind that doesn't last long but punches you right in the chest. Then he laughed. "Maybe I like quiet guys, who look like they're thinking too much." The others laughed too, one of them clapping him on the back like it was all a joke. And maybe it was. Maybe it was nothing. A drunken comment in a room full of noise. But I felt it hit me like someone had dropped a stone in my stomach. Because he was looking at me when he said it. I didn't say anything. I didn't have time to. Theo walked back in, conversation picked up, and Liam stood to grab another beer like nothing had happened. But for the rest of the night, I couldn't focus. Not on the game, not on the music, not on anything. Every time I glanced over at Liam, he was already looking away, or scratching the back of his neck, or sipping his beer like nothing in the world could touch him. I stayed later than I meant to, long after the others left. Theo had gone upstairs to call his girlfriend again. I was lingering in the kitchen, rinsing out bottles, pretending not to wait for Liam to say something else. He didn't. Not at first. But as I grabbed my jacket from the back of a chair, Liam leaned against the counter and said, "Hey." I turned. "You know I was just messing around, right?" he said, eyes on the floor. "Earlier. Don't want you to think I was being serious." "Oh," I said, trying not to sound like anything. "Yeah. No worries." He nodded, didn't look at me. "Just a joke. I mean, people say dumb shit when they're drunk." "Sure," I said, even though I hadn't been drinking, even though I remembered exactly how he looked at me. I started to walk past him, and just as I did, he touched my arm. Light. Quick. "But if it was true," he said, so quiet I almost didn't catch it, "you wouldn't say anything to Theo, right?" I froze. He met my eyes then, and I swear I'd never seen him look like that before. Like he wasn't sure what to be, like he was waiting for me to decide. "I wouldn't," I said. He nodded again, then let me go. I walked out into the night, cold air biting at my skin. But I didn't feel cold. I felt something else entirely, and that was the beginning. I told myself I was overthinking it. People say weird shit when they drink. That's just a fact. Liam probably didn't even remember saying it. Or maybe he did, but regretted it, and that's why he tried to walk it back in the kitchen. I replayed his words 100 times that weekend, trying to twist them into something harmless. Just a joke. Just a tease. But there was something about his voice when he asked me not to tell Theo. It wasn't casual. It wasn't jokey. It was scared. And that scared me, because once you hear something like that, you can't go back to pretending you didn't. And I didn't know what to do with it. Theo didn't mention anything when I saw him the next week. We met up for ramen after work like usual, and if anything felt different, he didn't let on. I wanted to ask about Liam, how long he was staying, if he was okay, but I didn't. I couldn't. It would have sounded weird. I didn't see Liam again until the following Friday. Theo invited a few people over for a movie night, and I hesitated before saying yes. I wasn't sure if Liam would be there, and I wasn't sure what I'd say if he was. But when I showed up, there he was, already on the couch, barefoot, wearing gray sweatpants, and a loose black hoodie that looked like it had been through 100 washes. "Hey," he said when I walked in, and there was something quieter in it than before. I gave a quick hey back and tried to act normal, but I felt his eyes on me when I took a seat at the edge of the couch, and again when I reached for the popcorn. The rest of the night was a blur. I couldn't tell you what movie we watched. Everyone else seemed to be enjoying it, laughing at the right moments, throwing snacks at each other, but I was stuck in my own head. Every time Liam shifted, I noticed. Every time his legs stretched out a little closer to mine, I held my breath. At one point, Theo got up to get more drinks, and the others followed him out of the room. It was just me and Liam for maybe a minute. Maybe less. But it felt longer. He leaned in, voice low. "You doing okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. You?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I wasn't messing with you." My pulse jumped. "What?" "That night," he said, eyes fixed on the floor. "I meant it. I was just drunk enough to say it out loud." I swallowed, hard. "Okay." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "You're not going to say anything, right?" To Theo. I shook my head. "No, I said I wouldn't." He nodded. "Thanks." Then he stood and walked out of the room, leaving me alone, with my heart pounding and the sound of the movie still playing in the background, like nothing had just happened. For the next week, we didn't talk. I didn't go to Theo's. I didn't run into Liam anywhere. But I kept thinking about him, about what he said, about the way his voice changed when he was being honest. Then, one afternoon, I got a text. "Liam, you free?" I stared at it for a while. I didn't know what he meant. Free for what? To talk? To hang out? To pretend nothing was weird? Me. "Yeah, why?" Liam. "Come over. Theo's out. I just want to talk." It took me almost an hour to respond, and another hour to actually show up. My palms were sweating when I knocked on the door. Liam opened it like he'd been standing right there the whole time. "Hey," he said, stepping back to let me in. "Thanks for coming." I nodded, stepping inside. The apartment smelled like coffee and clean laundry. Theo's room was dark and closed. The living room was quiet. Liam motioned toward the couch. "You want something to drink?" "I'm good." He sat down across from me, arms resting on his knees. He looked nervous, more nervous than I'd ever seen him. "I've been thinking a lot about what I said." He started, eyes on the coffee table. "And I just want to be clear, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." "You didn't," I said a little too quickly. He looked up. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, softer this time. "You didn't." He ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, good. I've never told anyone about how I feel, about what I might be." I didn't say anything. I let him keep talking. It's weird, right? Being the older brother, the one who's supposed to have his shit together, and then I'm the one sitting here not knowing what the hell I'm doing. "It's not weird," I said. "It's real." Liam laughed once, dryly. "I thought I had it all figured out. Girls, work, life. Then it's like, This attraction just doesn't go away. He glanced at me. And then you're here. The words hung between us, sharp and soft at the same time. I didn't plan on this, he said, quieter now, but I notice you. All the time. And it messes with my head. I should have said something. I should have eased the tension. But I just sat there, watching him unravel, every part of me screaming and silent at once. He shifted on the couch, closer now. I don't know what I'm asking, he said. I just needed you to know. We sat there in silence. Then he looked at me like he was asking permission without asking it. And I didn't move. And neither did he. Not at first. It was one of those moments where everything slows down, like your brain wants to memorize every inch of it before it disappears. The way the late afternoon light hit the side of Liam's face, the steady rise and fall of his chest, the slight tremble in his fingers as he rested them on the edge of the cushion between us. It would have been easy to break it, to laugh, to say something dumb and deflect like I always did. But I didn't, and he didn't either. Instead, Liam leaned in, slowly. Not like a guy trying to be slick, more like someone testing gravity, seeing if the pull was real. I didn't stop him. When his lips finally brushed mine, it was light, barely there, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to do it. But I kissed him back. It wasn't fireworks or some dramatic music moment. It was quiet, careful, honest. The kind of kiss that says I've been holding this in for way too long. When we pulled apart, he kept his eyes closed for a second longer than I did, like he didn't want the moment to end. Shit, he whispered, voice barely above a breath. Yeah, I said, not knowing if I was agreeing with the kiss or the fact that we'd just done something we couldn't undo. He pulled back, leaning against the couch like he needed space to breathe. I didn't blame him. My heart was thudding in my chest like I'd just sprinted a mile. I didn't mean for that to happen, he said finally. I know. He cut himself off, scrubbing a hand over his face. I've never kissed a guy before. I looked at him. You sure? He gave me a crooked smile. Okay, not never. Once. In high school. But it was nothing. I buried it. Until now, he nodded. You make it hard to bury. That made me laugh, short and surprised. And he laughed too, even if it was a little awkward. The tension in the room eased just a little, like we'd finally let out something that had been sitting there too long. But that peace only lasted a moment before reality crept in again. What about Theo? I asked. Liam sighed, the question hitting him like a brick. Yeah, I don't know. He has no clue. No, and he can't. Not yet. I nodded. I got it. It wasn't just about us. It was about who we were in Theo's world. Me as his best friend, Liam as his older brother. The rules were different. The risks were higher. Liam sat forward again, elbows on his knees, head hanging low. I'm not trying to screw this up. I don't even know what this is. I just know I feel something when I'm around you. And I felt it for a while. How long? He looked up at me. Since before I left town. Before the job up north. I'd see you hanging out with Theo, and I'd catch myself watching you, thinking things I shouldn't have. And now? He didn't answer right away, just stared at me for a long second. Now it feels worse. Or better. I don't know. But I can't pretend it's not there anymore. My throat felt tight. Not from fear. From hope. Maybe. From the terrifying idea that maybe Liam had felt the same knots I'd been trying to untangle for years. I don't need you to say anything, he added. I know it's complicated. It is, I said. But it's not impossible. He looked surprised by that. You're not the only one who's been hiding, I said, quieter now. I've been into you since I was, 17. His eyes widened. Seriously? I nodded. You were always just Theo's cool older brother, and I figured, what's the point? It wasn't like you were ever going to see me that way. Well, he said, slowly, I do now. We sat in that for a minute, the weight of it settling into the room like dust. There wasn't a clear next step. No game plan. Just two guys sitting on a couch, facing a line they'd both just crossed. I should probably head out, I said eventually, even though I didn't want to. Liam looked like he wanted to argue with that, but he didn't. Yeah, probably. I stood, heart heavy and full at the same time. As I reached the door, he said, "Hey." I turned. "Can I see you again?" he asked. "Not here. Somewhere else." "Just us." I nodded. "Yeah. Text me." He smiled, and it was different this time. Softer. Realer. Like he'd finally stopped holding his breath. As I walked home, I replayed everything. The kiss. The way he looked at me. The way he said he noticed me. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel something I'd been too afraid to touch. Hope. He texted the next day. "Liam, you free tonight?" I stared at the message longer than I needed to. The butterflies were instant, and not the cute kind. The chest-tightening kind. The kind that made me check the lock screen 3 more times, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. Me? Yeah. Want to meet somewhere? Liam, too many eyes. Come here. Me. What about Theo? Liam, he's working late. Won't be back till midnight. I shouldn't have gone. It was a bad idea. Risky, messy, full of potential for disaster. But I went anyway. The sun hadn't set yet when I walked up to their place. I kept my hood up just in case one of the neighbors was out on their porch or Theo somehow decided to come home early. My hands were clammy by the time I knocked. Liam opened the door like he'd been waiting behind it. He was barefoot again. Same hoodie. Different vibe. "Hey," he said, stepping aside. "Hey." We stood in the entryway for a second, like neither of us knew what we were doing. It was quiet, just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the hum of the fridge. Then he said, "Come on," and nodded toward the hallway. I followed him into his room. It wasn't what I expected. Less messy, a few framed prints on the walls. A guitar in the corner that looked like it hadn't been touched in months. The blinds were closed. The light was soft. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked up at me like he was trying to read my mind. I stood in the doorway, suddenly unsure of everything again. "We don't have to do anything," he said. "I just wanted to see you." That should have calmed me down, but it didn't, because I did want something. I wasn't even sure what exactly, just more. "Can I sit?" I asked. He nodded, and I sat beside him. Not close, not touching, just there. We didn't talk for a while. Then he said, "I've never done this before." I know. I don't mean with a guy. I mean, letting someone in. I looked over at him. His eyes were fixed on the floor, jaw tight, like he was fighting the urge to shut down. "I'm not trying to pressure you," I said. "I know. You can stop this anytime. We can stop this. Right now. I'll walk out and it won't be weird." He looked at me then. "But I don't want you to." The air shifted. Liam leaned in. Not fast, not slow, just enough to close the space. His hand brushed mine, light and unsure. When our lips met again, it wasn't like the first time. There was more behind it. Less hesitation, more need. The kiss deepened. I felt his hand move to my jaw, guiding me gently, like he'd been thinking about this, picturing it. My hands landed on his hoodie, unsure what to do at first, but eventually gripping the soft cotton like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. We broke apart just long enough to breathe. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "I just can't believe this is happening." His fingers brushed the side of my neck. Tentative, like he was memorizing it. We lay back slowly, side by side on the bed, still clothed, still kissing, still caught in that space between want and fear. Every move felt like it meant something. Every shift of his hand, every sigh, every pause. There was heat, but it wasn't about closeness. Not really. It was about being seen. About Liam finally letting someone see past the version of himself he showed to the world. The confident older brother. The stoic guy who never got too close. Now, he was looking at me like I was the only thing in the room that made sense. Eventually, we stopped. Not because we had to, just because it felt right to. We lay there for a while, breathing in sync, my head resting against his shoulder, his hand gently tracing the seam of my sleeve. He spoke first. "Do you think I'm—" He didn't finish. "Gay?" I offered. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. Maybe. Not completely. You don't have to figure it out tonight. But I want to figure it out." I nodded against his shoulder. "Start here, then. With me." He didn't say anything, but his arm tightened around me just enough to tell me he heard. Later, when the clock struck 11, I sat up. I should go. Theo might be back soon. Liam sat up with me. "You don't have to sneak out. He won't think anything." "I know, but I should." We walked to the door together. He stood just inside the frame as I stepped out into the cool night air. I turned to say goodbye, but before I could, he leaned forward and kissed me again. Quick, quiet, full of things he still couldn't say out loud. Then he whispered, "Text me when you get home." I nodded, unable to stop the grin on my face. And when I walked away that night, I knew something had changed. It wasn't just about attraction anymore. It was starting to feel like the beginning of something real. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying every second. His fingers in my hair. The way he looked at me like he didn't want me to leave. The soft sound of his voice saying, "Text me when you get home," still echoing in my head hours later. It should have felt wrong, sneaking around. Being in Theo's house, in his brother's bed, while he was gone. But it didn't, not even a little. If anything, it felt like the first time in a long time I wasn't faking it. Like I wasn't just playing the role of the chill friend, the quiet guy in the corner who never wanted too much. Liam made me feel seen. And it was addictive. The next few days were a mix of texts and tension. Nothing overly flirty, nothing explicit. Just casual little messages that meant more than they looked. "Liam, did you sleep at all?" Me. "Barely. You?" Liam. "Nope. Kept thinking about your hand on my chest." Me. "That was your hoodie, not your chest." Liam. "Semantics." I smiled like an idiot every time his name lit up my screen. But that high didn't last long. Because the next time I went over, Theo was there. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I figured I'd just swing by to drop off something Theo had left at my place. A phone charger or a hoodie. Something stupid. I figured Liam wouldn't be home. He was. I rang the bell, and Theo answered, pulling me into a quick half hug. "Dude, you didn't have to bring this. I literally have 6 of these." I shrugged. "Figured you missed this one." Liam was in the kitchen. I could see him through the doorway, pouring cereal like it was the most casual moment in the world. He looked up when he noticed me, and for a split second, his face softened. Then he blinked, and it was gone. "Hey," he said flatly, tone casual. "What's up?" "Not much," I replied, playing along. Theo walked ahead of me, not noticing a thing. "We're about to play FIFA if you want to join." I hated FIFA, but I said yes anyway. The 3 of us sat on the couch like it was any normal weekend, like my body hadn't been tangled up in Liam's just days ago. Like, we weren't trading glances every time Theo turned his head. Like, I wasn't hyper aware of the way Liam's knee brushed mine when we sat too close. It was torture. At one point, Theo got a phone call and stepped into the other room. As soon as he was gone, the silence between me and Liam grew thick. "You okay?" I asked under my breath. Liam nodded once. "Fine. You sure?" He gave me a look that said, "Don't do this here." And I got it. I really did. But it still stung. After the game, Theo grabbed his keys. "I'm heading to Kayla's for dinner. You guys good?" I tried not to look too eager. "Yeah, all good." He left 5 minutes later. The second the front door closed, Liam stood up, paced once, then turned to me. "I hate pretending," he said. "I hate sitting there next to you and not being able to touch you, or even look at you right." I stood too, my voice low. "So don't pretend. You know I have to." Do you? I asked. Or are you just scared? He looked at me like I'd hit a nerve. You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted this to happen? I blinked. No, I don't. But it did happen. He moved closer, running both hands through his hair, looking frustrated and torn. I feel like I'm splitting myself in two every time he's around. I get that, I said, but don't make me feel like a mistake just because it's complicated. He froze, and I could tell he wasn't expecting that. You're not a mistake, he said finally. You're the only thing in my life right now that feels right. We stood there, the air still, the distance between us shrinking again. I want this, he said. I want you. I just don't know how to want it out loud yet. I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. Then we figure it out, I said. Quietly. Carefully. But we don't run from it. Liam stepped forward and pulled me into a hug. A real one. The kind where he buried his face in my neck and just breathed for a while. Stay a little? He asked. So I did. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't even lie down. We just sat on the edge of his bed, shoulders touching, hands brushing, like we were slowly building something from the inside out. It was terrifying, but also kind of beautiful. The secret started feeling heavier the longer we kept it. At first, it was exciting, those quiet moments no one else noticed. The texts, the lingering looks, the touches passed off as accidental. It was like we had this entire world tucked inside the margins of real life. But the longer we lived in it, the more it started to feel like hiding instead of protecting. The turning point came 2 weeks later. Theo had planned a small birthday dinner for himself. Just a handful of close friends at a bar downtown. Burgers, beers, nothing too wild. He asked me to come early and help set up. And I said yes, of course, because that's what I always did. I didn't realize Liam would be there early too. When I walked in, Liam was already by the bar, helping Theo count chairs. He saw me, and there was that flicker in his eyes, the one that used to make me feel warm. But tonight, it was different. He looked tired. Off. You good? I asked when we were alone in the corner, pretending to argue over where the birthday banner should hang. Yeah, he said. Just long day. But it wasn't just that. I knew him better now. There was something else under the surface. You're pulling away, I said quietly. He didn't answer right away. I'm trying not to, he said eventually. But this whole thing is starting to feel like a pressure cooker. It doesn't have to. He gave a small, bitter smile. You don't get it. You're not the one who has to look Theo in the eye and lie every single day. That stung, even though I knew he didn't mean it that way. I'm not asking you to lie, I said. I'm asking you not to disappear. He looked at me for a long second. I'm not disappearing. I'm just trying to figure out how to breathe. And then Theo walked up behind us, clapping both of us on the shoulders, totally unaware. You two look intense. What's up? Just arguing about this crooked-ass banner. I lied quickly. Liam chuckled and nodded. Yeah, he's got no eye for symmetry. The night went on like that. Jokes, drinks, laughter that felt slightly offbeat to me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, that we were standing on the edge of a line we couldn't uncross, and Liam was already stepping back from it. Later, after most of the guests left and Theo was hammered enough to fall asleep in the booth, I found Liam outside by the smoking area. He wasn't smoking, just leaning against the brick wall, staring out at the street like it had answers. You look like someone who wants to disappear, I said quietly. He turned his head. Just thinking. I joined him against the wall, our shoulders brushing. You're allowed to think. Just don't think yourself out of this. He didn't say anything. I know this isn't easy, I added. But I'm here. You're not alone in this, Liam. He let out a slow breath. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it. That part caught him. I saw it in the way his expression changed, softened. He turned. facing me fully. "You ever wish we hadn't started this?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Do you?" He looked down. "No, I just wish I didn't care so much." "Why?" "Because caring means I've got more to lose." That was the most honest thing he'd said in weeks. I stepped closer. "We both do." We didn't kiss, not out there in the open, but he reached for my hand, just for a second. Just long enough to remind me he was still there. I squeezed his fingers before letting go. "Come over later, after Theo crashes." He nodded, barely. "Yeah, maybe." I didn't know what to do with maybe anymore. He came. 2 hours later, just after midnight. I'd left my apartment door cracked like a maybe of my own. And when he walked in, he didn't say anything. He just dropped his hoodie on the floor, sat beside me on the bed, and buried his face in his hands. "I don't want to keep lying to him," he said into the silence. "Then don't," I whispered. "But don't lie to yourself either." He looked at me. "What are we even?" I knew he wasn't asking to define the relationship in a label way. He was asking if it meant anything, if it was real, if it was enough. So I told him the truth. We're two people trying to figure it out. And yeah, it's messy, but it's real. Isn't that enough right now? He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled me in. We didn't talk anymore that night. He kissed me slow, deep, like he needed to anchor himself to something solid. We moved together without rushing. It was different from the last time. Less nervous, more sure. And when we finally lay there in the dark, tangled and quiet, he whispered, "Don't let me push you away." "I won't," I said. "But you can't keep shutting the door behind me either." He didn't respond, but his arm around me tightened. I stayed awake long after he fell asleep, listening to his breathing, knowing this wasn't the end of our problems. But maybe it was the beginning of him being ready to face them. And that was something. When I woke up the next morning, Liam was gone. Not in a dramatic way, not like he'd vanished. He left a note on the pillow next to me. Just a torn scrap from my notepad. "Didn't want to wake you. Had to be home before Theo noticed. Last night meant a lot." No signature. Just that. I stared at it longer than I needed to, trying to decide if I felt okay or kind of abandoned, because it did mean a lot. But him leaving quietly, slipping out while the world was still dark, made it feel like maybe it wasn't something he was ready to let see daylight. Still, I didn't text him. I let him have the space I figured he needed. We didn't talk for 2 days. Then, out of nowhere, he sent me a photo. It was just the front seat of his truck, some fast food wrappers, and a coffee cup. But the caption read, "Passenger seat feels empty." I didn't even know how to respond to that. It was such a Liam thing, saying something huge without saying it directly. But it was something. A breadcrumb. A hint that he wasn't running away again. Later that week, we met at the park. Somewhere public, but quiet, safe. He sat beside me on a bench near the tennis courts, a hoodie pulled over his head like armor. "I've been thinking," he said. "That's usually dangerous." He smirked. "Funny." I waited. "I can't keep doing this if I'm not going to be honest about it," he said. "With myself." "With you. That's a good thing, right?" He looked at me. "Depends how honest I'm ready to be." I didn't rush him. I let him sit in it. I knew Liam well enough now to understand he hated being pushed, even toward something he wanted. "I think I'm bi," he said finally, voice low. "I don't know for sure. But I know I don't want anyone else right now." It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even that surprising. But it was the first time I heard him claim something. Out loud. With no shame in it. I nodded slowly. "That's enough for me." He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it for years. Then, softer, "I want this to be real, not just in secret. But I'm scared what'll happen if Theo finds out." "Why?" He glanced at me. "Because I'm supposed to be the brother who has it together. I've always been the one he could lean on. What if this changes how he sees me? I understood that fear. I carried some version of it every time we were in the same room as Theo, laughing at his jokes, eating his mom's lasagna like everything was normal, knowing we were living two truths. But if you're hiding who you are, I said, how much can he really lean on you? That one hit. He didn't say anything for a while after that. We just watched a kid trying to learn how to skateboard nearby, failing repeatedly but never stopping. Liam turned to me. I want to tell him. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. That word, soon, carried more weight than I expected, because it meant he saw a future here, one that wasn't just midnight sneaking and unsent texts. I'll be there when you do, I said. If you want. He reached for my hand. Didn't even check to see if anyone was looking. I do, he said. A few nights later, I came over for dinner. Theo had invited a few friends, just a small hangout, and I said yes. Not because I wanted to pretend, but because I wanted to see how it felt being near Liam now that something had shifted between us. It was hard, at first. Every time our eyes met across the room, it felt electric. Every time he laughed at something someone said, I caught myself wanting to be next to him, wanting to touch him. Theo was his usual self. Loud, chaotic, always 3 jokes ahead of the conversation. At one point, he pulled me into the kitchen while the others played a game in the living room. Can I ask you something? Theo said. I tensed. Sure. Has Liam seemed different lately? My stomach dropped. Different how? I don't know, Theo said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. Just quieter. Kinda like he's got something on his chest. I forced a shrug. Maybe work stuff? Maybe. Theo cracked the beer. Or maybe he's got a girl he's not telling me about. I nearly choked. Theo grinned. What? I'm his brother, I notice things. Well, I managed. Maybe he'll tell you when he's ready. Yeah, he said, nodding. Just hope he knows I don't care who it is. Guy, girl, whatever. Just don't want him thinking he can't talk to me. I froze. Theo kept sipping his beer like it was nothing. I wanted to say something. Right there. I wanted to tell him Liam wasn't alone, that he wasn't hiding from judgment, just bracing for it. But it wasn't my truth to give. So I kept it inside. But when Liam walked me to the door later that night, I told him everything. What exactly did he say? Liam asked, eyes wide. He said he doesn't care, that he just wants you to talk to him. Liam was quiet for a long time. I'm gonna tell him, he said, finally. Tomorrow. And something about the way he said it made me believe it was really happening. That this was no longer a secret story. That we were finally stepping out of the margins. Liam texted me the next day around noon. I told him. That was it. No emojis, no punctuation. Just 3 words that nearly made my heart stop. I stared at my phone, half expecting more to follow. A flood of updates, a voice message, something. But nothing came. Just that one heavy message hanging in the air. I waited 10 minutes before I replied. How did it go? He didn't answer for a full hour. Every minute stretched out like a lifetime. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept checking my phone, refreshing, rereading the same 3 words. Finally, a new message buzzed through. Can you come over? No explanation. No clues about how it had gone. I grabbed my jacket and left immediately. When I got there, the front door was already unlocked. I stepped inside slowly, quietly, unsure of what kind of situation I was walking into. Liam was sitting at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood, head in his hands. He looked up when I entered. His eyes were red but clear. Not broken, just full. Hey, he said softly. Hey. I moved closer. So? He let out a long breath and shook his head. I said it. I told him I'm seeing someone. That it's a guy. That it's you. My stomach twisted. And? He just looked at me, Liam said. Didn't say anything for a long time. Then he asked how long it's been going on. I told him. He paused. I expected him to freak out, or ask if I was joking, or punch a wall or something. But instead, "What?" he said. "Okay. That's good to know." I blinked. "That's it?" Liam gave a small, shocked laugh. Basically, he said it caught him off guard, but he didn't care. That I'm still his brother, and he's glad I told him. Relief hit me like a wave. I dropped into the chair across from him, heart thudding. "That's amazing." "I know," Liam said, almost dazed. "I built it up in my head for so long, I thought he'd hate me." "He never would. I know that now." We sat there for a moment, just breathing in the silence, letting it settle around us. Then he stood and came around the table, pulling me up into a hug. "I don't want to hide anymore," he whispered into my neck. "I'm done with that." I held him tighter. "Me too." The next few weeks felt different, not in a big, dramatic way, but in all the small, quiet ways that mattered most. We didn't have to sneak around anymore. We could sit on the couch next to each other. We could text without codes. We could just be. Theo never brought it up again, but he smiled at me differently now, like he knew something, and he was okay with it. One night, while we were all watching a movie, he nudged Liam and said, "You gonna hold his hand, or what?" before going back to his popcorn. We laughed, but I think Liam almost cried. It wasn't perfect. There were still awkward moments, and Liam was still getting used to letting people see this part of him. He didn't become a totally different person overnight, but he became more of himself, bit by bit. He let me into places I'd never been before, introduced me to friends as his boyfriend, started leaving little notes in my bag or on my windshield, texted me just to say he missed me, and I started believing it could really last. One night, maybe a month after the talk with Theo, we were lying in bed at my place. My room was dark, except for the soft blue glow of the alarm clock. Liam's arm was draped across my chest, fingers absent-mindedly tracing patterns against my skin. "You know what the scariest part was?" he asked softly. "What?" "Not the coming out, not even telling Theo." "Then what?" "Letting you in. Like really in. I've never done that with anyone." I turned my head toward him. Same. He lifted his head just enough to kiss my jaw. "Feels kind of nice," I smiled. "Yeah, it does." We didn't say anything after that. We just lay there, tangled up, quiet, and safe. And for once, I didn't feel like a side character in someone else's story. I wasn't waiting on the sidelines or hoping for scraps. I wasn't a secret or a maybe. I was something real. And so was he.